Geobyte.
Hello friends, welcome to the GeoByte. In this video, let us discuss the solutions for previous ESET questions given for heat power engineering. Dear friends, in the ESET exam, generally the questions are repeating. Therefore, the each and every problem I have selected for this video is equally important. And these problems are important not only for ESET exam but also for other competitive exams. Look at the very first problem. The very first problem given in 1991. It is like this. Reaction turbines are more efficient than impulse turbines because option A, number of moving stages are larger. Option B, the moving and fixed blade sections are thick and symmetrical. Option C, the moving and fixed blade sections are thin and asymmetrical aerofoil sections. D, of the reduced blade friction on account of lower steam velocities. Option D is absolutely correct. The reason behind that is the steam is entering to the reaction turbine at low velocity. If you take the impulse turbine, impulse turbine, impulse turbine, reaction turbine, reaction turbine, the steam is entering to the impulse turbine, that is steam entering velocity, steam entering velocity is very high. The steam entering velocity is very high. The loss of energy due to friction, loss of energy due to friction, loss of energy due to friction is proportional to square of the velocity, square of the velocity. Whereas for the reaction turbine, the steam entering at low velocity, steam entering velocity is low. Then what is the loss of energy due to friction? Loss of energy due to friction is proportional to square of the velocity. For both cases, loss of energy due to friction, formula remaining same, proportional to square of the velocity. But the velocity of the steam, for the reaction turbine, velocity of the steam for the reaction turbine is less than velocity of the steam entering to the impulse turbine. Therefore, frictional losses are high in impulse turbine. Frictional losses are high in impulse turbine, whereas frictional losses are less. Frictional losses are less in reaction turbine. Since the frictional losses are less in reaction turbine, the reaction turbine efficiency always better than impulse turbine efficiency. Dear friends, remember this information is true not only for steam turbine but also for water type impulse turbines and reaction turbines. But for water turbine, instead of steam, water is entering to impulse turbine and water is entering to reaction turbine. That is the reason practically the Francis turbines are maintaining better efficiency than the Pelton wheel. Pelton wheel is the impulse water turbine, whereas D level turbine is the steam type impulse turbine. Anyhow, the reaction turbines are always maintaining better performance than that of the impulse turbine because the frictional losses for the reaction turbine is very less comparatively the impulse turbine. I hope you clearly got my point. Let us take the next problem. Look at the second problem. It is also asked in 1991. The ratio of P2 by P1 in a nozzle when it gives maximum discharge is known as. Here for the steam nozzle, if I take the converging diverging nozzle is looking like this. This is the converging diverging nozzle. The converging diverging nozzles are selected for getting the supersonic velocity. You know, it consists of three sections. Converging section, diverging section. In between converging and diverging section, there is a small portion maintaining uniform cross section is called throat. Let this is the section 1, section 2, section 3. The pressure set respect to sections P1, P2, P3. Remember, the quantity P2 by P1 is called critical pressure ratio. For getting maximum discharge, for getting maximum mass flow rate, This P2 by P1 is equal to 2 by n plus 1 whole power n by n minus 1, where n equal to steam index. This is steam index n equal to 1.3 for superheated steam. Means if superheated steam is entering to the nozzle, the n value is 1.3. If dry steam is entering to the nozzle, it is 1.135 for dry steam or dry saturated steam. This n is approximately 1.113 for wet steam. Anyhow, the ratio between the pressures at the throat and inlet for getting the maximum discharge or maximum mass flow rate is called critical pressure ratio. Remember, by the time the pressure of the steam is dropping from P1 to critical pressure, the flow velocity at throat may be V2 equal to sound velocity. The initial velocity may be V1, the exit velocity may be V3. Now remember, this V3 is more than sound velocity and this V1 is less than sound velocity. Therefore, you are finding the subsonic flow in the converging section. And supersonic flow in the diverging section. Exactly at the throat section, the flow velocity equal to sound velocity. Here A is the sound velocity. It means by the time the pressure of the steam is dropping from P1 to P2, that is critical pressure, the flow velocity is becoming sound velocity. With that condition, you can expect the maximum mass flow rate. Now let us go for the options. Once again, let me read the problem. The ratio of P2 by P1 in a nozzle when it gives maximum discharge is known as critical pressure ratio. Therefore, option C is absolutely correct. I hope all of you clearly understood. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the third problem. It is given in 2010. Binary vapor cycle is used. Dear friends, remember, binary vapor cycle means it is a combination of two power plants. Generally, the mercury is the one material in one power plant and steam is the material for other power plant. Whatever the heat which is rejected in the condenser of the mercury power plant will be taken by the water in the steam power plant. Anyhow, for recovering the heat energy dumped by the mercury cycle, the binary vapor cycle comes into picture. Since the heat recovery rate is more in binary vapor cycle, the binary vapor cycle is always maintaining better performance. Anyhow, remember that much in-depth information is not required at the diploma level. Time being, remember, binary vapor cycle means the combined power plants of mercury vapor plant and steam power plant is called binary vapor cycle. In the binary vapor cycle, the heat recovery rate is more. That means heat rejected to surroundings is less. Therefore, the binary vapor cycle is always maintaining better efficiency or better performance. Look at the options. Option A, increase the performance of the condenser. No. Increase the efficiency of the plant. Absolutely correct. For increasing the efficiency of the plant, generally the binary vapor cycle is selected. It is like this. The binary vapor cycle is like this. It consists of two cycles. One is mercury cycle. This is the mercury cycle, and other one is the steam cycle. This is the steam cycle. Steam is the material for the steam power plant and mercury is the material for the mercury power plant. It consists of mercury boiler. This is the mercury boiler. For this mercury boiler, liquid mercury is entering to the mercury boiler. The liquid mercury is becoming the vapor mercury. That vapor mercury is made to pass to the mercury turbine. This is the mercury turbine. By the time the mercury is expanding, mercury vapor is expanding over the mercury turbine blades, the mercury vapor is losing the energy. That loss of mercury vapor energy is converted to mechanical energy. Of course, mechanical energy may be converted to electrical energy. After expansion of the mercury vapor over the mercury turbine, it is left to the mercury vapor is left to the mercury condenser. This is the mercury condenser, where the mercury condenser is rejecting the heat. By the time the mercury vapor is passing through the mercury condenser, the mercury is rejecting the heat to the water which is passing in the other side. That means for this mercury condenser, water is entering from one side and mercury vapor is entering from other side. By the time the mercury vapor is passing through the mercury condenser, mercury vapor is becoming mercury liquid. Whatever the heat which is rejected by mercury will be taken by the water. This water is becoming this water is becoming steam. This water is becoming steam. This steam is made to pass to the steam turbine. By the time the steam is expanding over the steam turbine blades, we are getting some more work energy. After expansion of the steam over the steam turbine blades, the steam is left to the steam condenser. This is the steam condenser, where the steam is becoming, for the steam condenser, steam is entering, that steam is rejecting the heat to the coolant available in the steam condenser. Then the steam is becoming liquid. That liquid is called condensate. That liquid is called condensate. The same condensate is lifted to the mercury condenser, as feed water by means of a pump. Since the mercury condenser is acting as a boiler, for steam cycle, therefore that mercury condenser can also be called as heat recovery steam generator. That heat recovery steam generator is acting as a boiler for the steam power plant, and the same is acting as a condenser for the mercury power plant. Anyhow, in this heat recovery steam generator, water is becoming steam. By the time the mercury vapor is becoming mercury liquid, that mercury liquid is pumped back to the mercury boiler, where the liquid mercury is becoming vapor mercury. The same cycle will be repeated. This is how the amount of heat rejected by the mercury during the condensation will be recovered by the water. That is the reason the heat dumped to the outside is less. Therefore, the binary vapor cycle is always maintaining better performance or better efficiency over single power plant or the simple power plant. Simple power plant means I can take the steam turbine power plant or individual power plant. I hope you clearly got my point. Let us take the next problem. Look at the fourth problem. It is also asked in 2010. For the induced draft, the fan is located. There are two draft systems mainly under artificial draft system, forced draft system and induced draft system. In case of induced draft system, let me draw the induced draft system. This is your boiler, superheater, economizer, air preheater. Then this is the chimney. At the base of the chimney, this is the chimney. At the base of the chimney, we are placing a fan called induced fan. This is the induced fan. Anyhow, the air is entering to the boiler. For the purpose of oxidation or fuel firing. Because of the fuel firing, large amount of hot gas particles are developed. Those hot gas particles are heating the water, then entering to superheater. This is the superheater. Then economizer. Then air preheater. So this entering air is heating the boiler section, then it is made to pass through the superheater, where the wet steam is becoming superheated steam. Then it is entering to the economizer section, where the feed water is preheated. Then it is entering to the air preheater, where the air is preheated. Then it is left to the atmosphere. Through the chimney by means of a fan. This fan is pulling the gas from the boiler section and it is pushing towards the chimney. So anyhow, See the induced draught system mechanism. Induced draught system mechanism. In case of induced draught system mechanism, an induced fan is placed at the base of the chimney. Similarly, in the case of forced draught system, somewhere here a forced fan is placed. But the problem is asked for induced draught system. Look at the options. So let me read the problem once again. For the induced draught, the fan is located near the bottom of the chimney. Absolutely correct. Option A itself is absolutely correct. Near the bottom of the chimney, an induced fan is connected in case of induced draught system. I hope all of you clearly understood. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the fifth problem. The effect of considering frictional losses in steam nozzle for the same pressure ratio leads to. Dear friends, in general the steam is flowing through the steam nozzle reversible adiabatically. So theoretical flow of the steam in the steam nozzle is satisfying the reversible adiabatic condition or isentropic condition. Now for this case, the steam is entering with a pressure P1, leaving with a pressure P2. This P2 is less than P1 because we are calling this is the nozzle. This is the nozzle. By the time the pressure of the steam is dropping from P1 to P2, enthalpy of the steam is dropping from H1 to H2. That H1 and H2 can be marked like this. If I take the Mollier diagram or enthalpy versus entropy diagram, this is the saturated vapor curve. The steam is entering to the nozzle under high pressure P1, leaving from the nozzle at low pressure P2. If the steam is expanding reversible adiabatically, this may be the initial state. Reversible adiabatic process is maintaining constant entropy, therefore it is also called isentropic process. During this isentropic expansion of the steam, by the time the pressure of the steam is dropping from P1 to P2, enthalpy of the steam is dropping from H1 to H2. That means enthalpy drop dH equal to H1 minus H2 without friction. Without friction. Without the effect of friction, enthalpy is dropping from H1 to H2. Then exit velocity V2 equal to 44.72 into root over H1 minus H2. But once we consider effect of friction, the curve is deviating like this. Once we consider the effect of friction, the curve is deviated to 2 dash for the same pressure drop. Therefore, enthalpy is practically dropping from H1 to H2 dash only. Here 1 to 2 is isentropic expansion or expansion of the steam without friction, and 1 to 2 dash is expansion of the steam with friction. With friction, the enthalpy drop I can mark as dH dash equal to H1 minus H2 dash. Remember, this dH dash is less than dH. The actual enthalpy drop is less than ideal enthalpy drop. Therefore, the actual exit velocity of the steam 44.72 into root over H1 minus H2 dash. Since H1 minus H2 dash is less than H1 minus H2, the actual exit velocity is less than the ideal exit velocity. It means indirectly, once we consider the effect of friction, the velocity of the steam is going to decrease. Now look at the options. Look at the options. Once again, let me read the problem. The effect of considering frictional losses in steam nozzle for the same pressure ratio leads to option A, increase in exit velocity of the flow? No. Option B, decrease in exit velocity from the nozzle. Absolutely correct. Because of the friction, the exit velocity is less. I hope you clearly understood. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the seventh problem. It is also asked in 2010. In a surface condenser, if air is removed, there is a, you know, if I take the condenser, let this is your condenser. For the condenser, we are connecting the air extraction pump. Air extraction pump. This air extraction pump is removing the air present in the system to outside. Once the air is removed from the condenser, the pressure inside the condenser is less than atmospheric pressure. That means below atmospheric pressure. Below atmospheric pressure. That means condenser is always operating with a pressure less than atmospheric pressure or negative gas pressure. Negative gas pressure. So once the air is removed from the condenser to outside, this negative gas pressure is going to increase. This negative gas pressure is going to increase. Then what is the absolute pressure? The absolute pressure equal to atmospheric pressure minus gas pressure. Minus gas pressure. If this gas pressure is increasing, definitely atmospheric pressure is constant. Atmospheric pressure equal to what? 1 bar, roughly 1 bar. At constant atmospheric pressure, if the negative gas pressure in the condenser is increasing, definitely absolute pressure is decreasing. Look at the options. Let me read the problem once again. In a surface condenser, if air is removed, definitely the absolute pressure decreases. So look at the options. A fall in absolute pressure maintained in the condenser, absolutely correct. So the absolute pressure is decreasing because of the air removing from the surface condenser or any condenser. I hope you got my point. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the eighth problem. It is also asked in 2010. Thermal efficiency of the steam power plant is of the order of around 30%. Absolutely correct. Thermal efficiency of the gas turbine power plant approximately around 20%. Approximately. Thermal efficiency of the steam turbine power plant is approximately 30% or 32%. 32%. Whereas the overall efficiency of the water turbine power plant is around 85%. 85%. Anyhow, the thermal efficiency of the steam power plant we can take in the order of 30%. Let's go for the next problem. Look at the ninth problem. It is asked in 2011. For Parsons reaction turbine, degree of reaction is. Dear friends, the degree of reaction RD equal to enthalpy drop in the mobile blade divided by enthalpy drop in the mobile blade plus enthalpy drop in the fixed blade. For Parsons reaction turbine, remember, enthalpy drop in the mobile blade is equal to enthalpy drop in the fixed blade. Therefore, the degree of reaction RD equal to 0.5, that is equal to 50%. Remember, the degree of reaction for Parsons reaction turbine, this is very important point, 50%. Therefore, option B is absolutely correct. This is very important problem. Let me mark as a 5-star problem. 5-star problem means the most expected problem in the competitive exams. Then you may have doubt that, sir, what is the degree of reaction for simple impulse turbine? For simple impulse turbine, the degree of reaction RD equal to 0, because for the simple impulse turbine there is no pressure drop. If there is no pressure drop, no enthalpy drop. Since the degree of reaction is measured in terms of enthalpy drop is absent for the case of simple impulse turbine. That is the reason degree of reaction for simple impulse turbine is 0. I hope you clearly got my point. Let us take the next problem. Look at the 10th problem. It was asked in 2011. The critical temperature of water is, critical temperature is marked like this. Critical point, let us take the temperature versus entropy. The apex point is representing the critical point. For water, remember the pressure at the critical point is called critical pressure. That critical pressure for water is around 221 bar. Critical temperature for water is 374.14 degrees centigrade. 374.14 degrees centigrade is the critical temperature for water. Since the options are given, all options are given in Kelvin. This 374.14 plus 273 may be approximately 647.14 Kelvin. So this is the critical temperature for water. Look at the option B. Option B is absolutely correct. 647.3 approximately is the correct option. I hope you got my point. Let us take the next problem. Look at the 11th problem. It was also asked in 2011. D-level turbine. D-level turbine is the single wheel impulse turbine. Remember, D-level turbine always constructed to work with converging diverging nozzle. This point is very, very important point. Let me write as a note. D-level turbine always constructed with converging diverging nozzle. Converging diverging nozzle. This point is very, very important point. Converging diverging nozzle. So D-level turbine is always constructed with converging diverging nozzle. Anyhow, the D-level turbine is coming under single wheel impulse turbine or simple impulse turbine. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the 12th problem. In reaction turbine, the expansion of steam over the blades, generally expansion of the steam takes place adiabatically. That is the reason the expansion of the steam in the nozzle can be treated as isentropic process. Isentropic process is the reversible adiabatic process. Once again, let me read the problem. In a reaction turbine, the expansion of steam over the blades represents adiabatic process. Therefore, option C is absolutely correct. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the 13th problem. The Mach number of the steam flow at exit to the convergent divergent nozzle will be. First, let me define the Mach number. Mach number denoted by m equal to steam velocity by steam velocity divided by sound velocity. Sound velocity. Steam velocity divided by sound velocity is the Mach number for steam flow through the nozzle. It is given for what kind of nozzle? Given for convergent divergent nozzle. The convergent divergent nozzle is like this. Already we have discussed. It is like this. It consists of three sections: converging section, diverging section. This is the converging section. This is the diverging section, and this is the throat. Generally, nozzles are perfectly insulated. Therefore, nozzle flow can be treated as adiabatic flow. This point is also important. The steam flow through the nozzle is adiabatic. Let me write that point. Steam flow through the nozzle. Steam flow through the nozzle is adiabatic. Remember, for converging diverging nozzle, the flow velocity in the converging section is less than sound velocity. In this region, the flow velocity less than sound velocity. In this region, throat region, velocity equal to sound velocity. But at the exit of the converging diverging nozzle, if I assume the state 1, state 2, state 3, the state 3 velocity V3 always more than sound velocity. I hope you clearly got my point. Since the flow velocity at the exit of the converging diverging nozzle is more than sound velocity, then what is the Mach number? Mach number equal to flow velocity divided by sound velocity. Since the flow velocity is more than sound velocity, Mach number m is greater than 1. Mach number m is greater than 1. So anyhow, look at the options. More than 1 is absolutely correct. Once again, let me read the problem. The Mach number of steam flow at exit of converging diverging nozzle more than 1 because the flow velocity is more than sound velocity. Let us go for the next problem. Look at the 14th problem. When the back pressure of nozzle is below the designed value of pressure at exit of nozzle, the nozzle is said to be, it is like this. Dear friends, if I take the converging diverging nozzle, the converging diverging nozzle consists of converging portion, throat portion, and diverging portion. Let this is the section 1 where the steam pressure is P1. Let it be 10 bar. This is the section 2 where the pressure is P2. And this is the section 3 where the pressure is P3. Now, assume superheated steam is entering. For the superheated steam, the critical pressure P2 equal to 0.546 because P2 by P1 equal to 2 by n plus 1 whole power n by n minus 1. For superheated steam, n equal to 1.3. If I put n equal to 1.3 in this relation, I will get P2 by P1 equal to 0.546. If P2 by P1 equal to 0.546, then what is the P2? P2 equal to 0.546 multiplied by 10. It is 5.46. But what I wrote? So P2 by P1 is 0.546. The P2 equal to 5.46 when the steam is entering when the superheated steam is entering at 10 bar pressure. Assume I am designing the steam nozzle, converging diverging nozzle, to drop the pressure up to 3 bar. I have designed the steam nozzle, converging diverging nozzle, to drop the pressure up to 2 bar. But at the exit of the nozzle there is a turbine. Of course, the impulse turbine is maintaining constant pressure. Somewhere here condenser is maintained. Somewhere here condenser is placed. Assume this condenser is maintaining the pressure. The condenser is maintaining the pressure. Let it be 0.5 bar. 0.5 bar. So this 0.5 bar, that condenser pressure will be acting as a back pressure. That condenser pressure will be acting as a back pressure for the steam nozzle. Remember, even if the pressure of the steam, or even if the back pressure is less than the design pressure, the steam pressure is dropping in the nozzle only from 10 bar to 2.5 bar. The remaining pressure drop takes place outside the nozzle. That means, if the back pressure is less than the design pressure, your back pressure is once again condenser pressure. Condenser pressure is treated as back pressure. If the back pressure is less than the design pressure, the pressure of the steam will be dropping from the design pressure, that is 2 bar, to the back pressure, that is 0.5 bar, outside the nozzle. Such kind of expansion is called under expansion. Remember, if the steam pressure outside the nozzle is less than design pressure, the steam pressure is dropping from this 2 bar to 0.5 bar outside the nozzle. That kind of expansion is coming under expansion. Therefore, the option A is absolutely correct. I hope all of you clearly understood. Let us go for the last problem. Look at the last problem. If the flow is to be continuously accelerated from subsonic velocity to supersonic velocity in a nozzle, it must be, for getting the supersonic velocity, definitely it might be converging diverging nozzle. It is like this. If I take the converging diverging nozzle, at section 1 velocity may be some 20 meter per second. This 20 meter per second is less than sound velocity. Therefore, V1 is less than sound velocity. Here you can find the subsonic flow. That subsonic flow is becoming sonic flow at throat. At throat, the velocity is V2 equal to sound velocity. And in the diverging section, this is the diverging section. In this diverging section, the flow always more than sonic flow or sound velocity. This is the region where the steam is maintaining supersonic velocity more than sound velocity. Supersonic flow. If I assume this is the state 3 where the velocity V3 is more than sound velocity. So anyhow, to increase the velocity from subsonic to supersonic, definitely nozzle might be converging diverging nozzle. Therefore, option C is absolutely correct. I hope all of you clearly understood all these problems. With this problem, my dear friends, I am concluding this video. In the next video, I will come with some other problems which were given in previous ESET exams. Dear friends, I hope all of you clearly understood. Once again, you try to practice all these problems. While you are practicing, if you find any difficulty, you please send your doubt to GeoByte. Definitely I will answer all your questions. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our channel called GeoByte for getting the update information. Once again, thank you very much. Have a great day.
GeoByte.